technically a holiday? I mean, I guess it's like a holy day. It's a sacred day, especially for those who are celebrating El Dia de los Muertos. Thing is, when I was a kid, I used to always say my favorite holiday was Halloween, but it was not for any like sacred ritual reason. I was just hooked on candy. I know, I know. It's such a kid thing to say that the holiday that has your favorite snack or treats is the holiday for you. I'm sure if I was really into turkey and mac and cheese, it would have been Thanksgiving. But no, I had a like serious sweet tooth, and even now I distance myself from sweets because I don't ever want to go back down that nasty hallway. I was really a sweet fiend. Like, I would always need to get something, at like the grocery store or CVS. I'd always be like, yep, gonna get me my Hershey's bar. And so it just was not probably the most fun for my parents either. But also, I'm pretty sure it is their fault that I got hooked. Anyways, this episode is a real treat. It is, oh my goodness, it is phenomenal. It is delicious. I wish I could go back into the interview. This is how much fun I had and how absolutely eye-opening, world-expanding this interview was. So, buckle up, Buttercup. Sorry, pun intended, and I'm making myself laugh. Buckle up, Buttercup, because this is a sweet ride. Hi, I'm Unique Belle, the Pussy Queen. I blend tantric philosophy, science, and my own embodied soul wisdom to help women become their most orgasmic and potent selves by reclaiming their pussy and original soul essence. Get ready to experience sex so deep it rivals your meditation practice. You're listening to episode 109 of the Women Gone Wild podcast, Psychedelic Sensuality with Jessica Alfaqih. Today we are taking a sweet trip, a little journey with Psychedelic Sensuality coach Jessica Alfaqih. Oh my goodness, my world literally shook after this interview, and I hope that you also get this mind-blowing experience, because even though I was not taking psychedelics during this interview, I felt like I, just had a complete shift in my reality just from listening to Jessica talk about her experiences and how she serves her community, her clients as well. It's just so beautiful. As I shared during our conversation, I came into this talk knowing like nothing. I knew like nothing about psychedelics other than just they exist. Mushrooms are one of them. I don't know all the names to the psychedelic mushrooms. I started the book How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. We talk a little bit about it a few years ago. And so I know like generally what makes for a good trip just because I read like the first chapter, but it's a really thick book. And once I learned that I was not a good candidate for psychedelics and I should not go near that, I just kind of put it on the back burner and just was like, okay, it's, I don't need to read any more into this because I'm not going to be doing it, right? So the reason I personally will not be partaking in psychedelics, besides my just liking my mind as it is and being able to go deep in meditation and feeling like I really get what I need out of my practice. But I also have, just family history wise, I have, there are members of my family who have schizophrenia. And if you have any mental disorders or anything like that in your family, you want to be careful because it can trigger an episode. So I don't know if that would happen to me, but it's just to err on the side of caution because I like my mind. And like I said, I go pretty deep in my practice as it is through our sacred practices in Pussy Academy, through my meditation practice. I feel really met and served in, my practice as it is, but it does not mean I am not curious and super stoked about psychedelics, as you'll see. And what's cool is that with Jessica, you don't have to actually do psychedelics. She has a mode of working with people and women so that you don't actually necessarily need to work with psychedelics, but she brings the energy of psychedelics to her sensuality coaching, which I think is just really cool and not something I see all the time. And it really serves a unique group of people, and we'll get to that in the episode. So there are actually a group of people who, ladies, please go and talk to Jessica if this is you, because I get this question a lot from certain groups, and it's like, yeah, highlight, emphasize, this may be something for you. So definitely get in contact with Jessica. But I don't want to give too much away because this is such a juicy conversation. I just want you to go on into the episode. We talk for quite a bit. This is our first time meeting, and like honestly, I'm just in love with Jessica. We hit it off, and I hope you feel the energy as we're talking and get as excited as I am about this modality. So Jessica Alfaqih is a trauma-informed and certified psychedelic sensuality coach and master NLP practitioner. Pronouns are she, her, hers. She helps humans fill their lives with pleasure, connection, and sensual power. She uses a combination of body-based practices and brain rewiring techniques to help you permanently shift your experience with trauma and internal blocks. She's here to help you open yourself up to new, unlimited pathways to pleasure. Jessica is of mixed Lebanese and European heritage and lives and works on the ancestral and unceded land of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people. She is an absolute delight, and you are going to think so. I just know you're going to fall in love with her. You're going to think so too by the end of the episode. So without further ado, let's dive into psychedelic sensuality with Jessica Alfaqih. I'm so excited to talk. And I mean, I just saw you on Instagram and I was like, immediately, yes. I know nothing about this. And I was like, I just want to learn more. A few years
Perfect.
ago, I came across there's this like really thick, juicy book on psychedelics. And I feel like you would probably know it. I just can't, like, I see the cover of it. It's like dark, and then it's like a looking into like the sky, like through a window. I don't know. Do you know the one
That's
I'm talking
Michael
about?
Pollan's. Yeah, that's Michael Pollan's
Yes.
How to Change Your Mind. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Um, his name came to mind, which is funny because I feel like I rarely like remember authors' names as much as I do titles, but look at that. But I started it and I was so intrigued, but I never finished. I got to the part where he was talking about essentially like you needing to have the correct setting for a psychedelic experience. So I really didn't get very far. And I'm sure you can fill in a lot of the blanks for me. I'm so excited to just hear more. But before we dive into psychedelics and psychedelic sensuality, I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about how you got into it. I know you're also a master NLP practitioner, and I'm familiar with NLP as well. I know it's non-linguist, sorry. What? It's like the words are fumbling in my mind. Neuro linguistic programming. Can you tell me a little bit more about which came first? And yeah, like how did you stumble across both of these very interesting modalities?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a wild ride, like most origin stories. I ever since I was a kid, I've been fascinated by how people work, why we form the identities we do, why we do the things we do. And so I just like obsessively would pore over really dense psychology books like in middle school through high school.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so NLP for me has been something I came to when I was 14.
Wow, so young.
So young, and started just recognizing that the way that we perceive reality is shaped by so many different factors. And just the very fact that it's shaped was such a like aha moment for me, where it was like, if this isn't real, like if their objective reality is just a perception of the mind, like what does that say about how we create identity and why? So I really dug into a
Yeah.
lot of looking at the constructs that we create. And I was doing this mostly through the lens of teaching. I wanted to
Hmm.
be an English teacher. And so I was looking at how we can practice um, just a lot of undoing systems of oppression within how we construct um,
Yeah.
like grading modalities that are definitely affecting your identity, like whether you identify as a good student, bad student, kind of like your
Hmm.
story where it's like good girl, bad girl. Like there's so many of these
Yeah.
binaries that we just like buy into because everyone's telling us that this is what reality is. And so I had an NLP certification long before I ever went into sensuality coaching or psychedelic coaching. The
Hmm.
psychedelics actually came first. But I just didn't know where I wanted to apply my knowledge and my expertise. I was
Hmm.
all kind of hoarding it for myself and like,
Yeah.
um,
What's like in my head right now is like, whoa, 14 years old and like trying to figure out, can I ask like why was 14-year-old you so concerned with why people, how people create their realities? What was going on for you at the time? And like, were you exposed to like psychology through like an adult or like, yeah, just I'm curious.
yeah. So I had my first real reckoning with, I was deeply enchanted by ancient Egyptian mythology when I was in like fifth grade. And that led me to discover like paganism and Wicca and just different, all just exposed to all kinds of different spiritual and religious beliefs. And that was at odds with a lot of the dominant Christian ideologies in my community, and just like the culture that I was a part of. And so that was my first kind of like identity shatter. I was like, oh, maybe I'm different. And that moved into like being a very rebellious teenager trying to figure out like what my place was in the world. So when I was like 14, 15, I was experimenting with um, drugs, not in like a healthy healing way, but just in like a what is going on with the world kind of a way, and just trying to figure out what my
Mm,
identity was in this space. And that all kind of came crashing down around me when I got sober and had to deal with a clean slate for my identity, basically. So, like, my 16th birthday was kind of that moment for me where I had to say goodbye to all of the friends I knew and was
mm,
like, you get to rebuild yourself. But at 16, it's like, oh my God, like, what am I rebuilding from? And so I had to do a lot of really intentional work. And it was a really challenging period of time to just kind of have my identity totally torn apart and
yeah.
coming back to um coming back to who I wanted to be and who I felt like I genuinely was.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I just can't imagine having that journey at like 16. You know, I feel like when I was at that age, I was clinging to my Christianity, even though I was always asking questions. I was always up in youth group, like, how? Like, asking the hard questions that the adults were like, girl, we don't know all the answers. And they'd,
Put your
cover it
hand
up,
out.
right? They'd cover it up with just like, it's all part of God's plan, or like something like that, to just kind of like, get you to feel at peace. But I feel like my Christian faith was somehow it inflamed, and it also soothed the parts of me that were like, what is this world? Like, why are we here? And like, I feel like I had similar ideas as a kid of just like going through a lot of trauma in my family, and just like, why are these people the way that they are? You know, but to like, I don't know that I could personally have done what you did at 16. That's so big, so big. So I want to commend you on that. And wow, it's
I
amazing.
think I think, there's the hand that gets forced in that. So it's like having done, having got into substances that were like, you better get out of these
Yeah,
and quick. It's a lot of trauma, I think, forces you to do a radical shift, or to really reckon with things that you'd much rather not deal with. But the outcome of that is where all the power lies.
absolutely. Did you have a lot of support in that step? How did you kind of find your place into whether it's like NLP and eventually your coaching modalities? Like, how did you find support to kind of heal?
There were kind of pillars. So there are some teachers in my life who just role models, people who I could look up to and say, I want to kind of step into the identity that they're holding open for me. People who just like can see more in you and want more of you. And when that's what I wanted to step into. So I think I've always been a really curious child and adult, and just lifelong. I just want to learn about everything all the time. And so that really helped me do a lot of the processing, and a lot of like looking at, okay, here's where people are telling me that I can go, and just sitting and reflecting with, how does that feel? That did feel a lot better than we had to do. So I did go to rehab, which was really helpful. And we had to do a moment where you eulogize your death. So you get to pretend that you're dead, and everyone gets to talk about what they saw in you. And that seemed so cheesy at the time, but reflecting back on it, I think that really empowered me to say, that's not the life that I want to choose. And I have to figure out how to be different now.
Oh, interesting. Wow. I personally love like I don't want to say I love working with death because that sounds really heavy and probably scary to people. But I think it's also a cultural thing. I think in other cultures they have a different relationship to death. And
Yeah.
as I was getting my coaching certification, we had a ritual that was experiencing your life and then seeing yourself after death, and just like feeling how do you feel in like all the emotions of what have you done, what did you desire for more, like who are the people around you. And there's something so illuminating in that. And I think as someone where you were at the young age of 16, like where do I want my life to lead, that's so powerful. So you had a moment when you were 16, a turning point of like, okay, I have to kind of go a different way if I want to live the life that I want. Then you went into rehab. What came next?
There was a brief period of just like absolute normalcy in my life.
Mhm.
And I was always very reflective. So I had a journaling practice, and it's so cute to look through my high school journal and hear myself say, I'm struggling with the same things that I am today. And I desired the same things that I am today. Whereas I either want to be a teacher, or I want to be like a psychologist. Like I knew that I had something in me that wanted to help awaken different, like empowered systems within people. So I, in my 20s, I started my own businesses and I just like went full into the entrepreneur identity. And I started a college success coaching blog. So I just helped.
Oh, that's so cute.
I helped students kind of recognize that like this cookie cutter straight A narrative isn't serving a lot of students in the way that their relationship to what kind of knowledge they consume and how they develop it. And it's just like all this grade chasing that never does anybody any good. And so that's when I started like trying to dismantle structures like grading, what it means to be a good student, especially in the English discipline, because that privileges a lot of just middle class English speaking households and leaves out a huge swath of others. So I was really dedicated to kind of shining light on different pathways that people could take to develop a more empowered identity. And it just happened to be what I was doing, which was like I was in school, I was getting straight A's and running an entrepreneurial business, which, as you know, takes up a lot of time and energy. And so just to show people that you could do both, and that I was a self-identified kind of like batty wild child and was still crushing my academics, building really conscious relationships with professors and living my life and getting the grades, So I wanted to, it's just always been within me. I can kind of chart my lineage of how I wanted to serve and help people. And it's always been in dismantling oppressive structures, especially for just minoritized populations and in the West here, especially, and bringing alternative methods for people to try on.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing that work. I think if I was in college, I would have definitely joined some of your seminars because I love that. And I had a similar journey of like perfect student, perfect, until it fell apart, right? And my healing had to take place. And so I guess my question for you is, when you say you've always, not already, but you've always had like a sense of your lineage, what does that mean?
I think it's the healing lineage. So I think it's always feeling drawn to service and somehow using all of the knowledge that I get. Like I'm always wanting to share with people, check out this new tool or like reflect on this with me, and every time I listen to a podcast that I find really fascinating, I always want to pick someone to be like, can we talk about this? Will you listen to this and we can talk about it? So I think that's just been, I don't know where it came from. It's just always been the fire for me to learn as much as I can and then to help spread that knowledge if it's going to help other people.
And when you're in the places where you're learning, are you ever like learning for you? Like, are you ever in a season where it's like, it's just for me? And if so, do you mind sharing with us what that season is right now?
I feel like it all starts with me. It all starts with me. And I am the kind of person that has like 17 tabs open on the computer because there's just so much that I want to learn and absorb. And right now I'm really stepping into the communication portion. So learning how to deliver messages. And I'm coming from like a debilitating fear of speaking. Even as a student, I like wouldn't want to raise my hand because I was just so darn scared that someone would listen to me share what I had to say. So it's really interesting that like my dream has been to share all of the knowledge that I absorb, but then I'm being terrified of sharing it too. So my current me focus is kind of developing more of a skill set to be able to share that wisdom with others.
No, I feel that. And I feel like I've gone through so much like fear of like judgment and like, especially with my business and being heard, being seen, all the things. And I guess so what I was feeling into in that question is I don't know, as someone who's always like drawn to like deliver and help and like and be of service, I've found myself recently like feel like nudging that part of me, like, what is that? Like scratching at it is what I like to call it when I'm with clients, like, I'm gonna scratch at this. We'll see what's under here. Almost like a scratch offer. Um, and so I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. That's where I'm at right now. And maybe I'm projecting that onto you, but I'm always curious, like, does anyone else ever get into their brain and go, where is that impulse coming from? But okay, so you're in your 20s and you did awesome work in college and like connecting not only to students, but you also held up what you were there to do, right? Um, which I think is hard, first of all, but I just commend you. You're a rock star. And so then after your 20s, you're opening these businesses. Um, yeah, tell me like where does NLP, not NLP, but psychedelics, because I think we covered NLP? Is this the season where you're going through? Is NLP one of the businesses that you start at this time? I just want to know when you start incorporating psychedelics because that's what I want to know more about. I want to know
Yeah.
how this came about.
Yeah. Well, we're at the exact point in my chronology where psychedelics really play their big role. I, so the first business I started was an art gallery, and I did that. It turned into three. It turned into working with one of the most famous performance artists in the world and like flying to New York between my classes, just like this insane kind of lifestyle. And I went
Wow.
to Santa Barbara to visit with a friend. We took some mushrooms, like a decent dose, and we're just laying outside on the mesa looking up at the stars. And there was a moment, like so many of the moments that have kind of knocked my life into alignment, where I felt so deeply in my body, I can't go back to that. That's not the lifestyle that I want. That's not my dream.
While you were while you were in the grass and you were high, that's when you had that experience.
Yes, that's when
What
I had
was the
that moment.
lifestyle that you weren't willing to go back to?
Being an art gallerist, being around kind of the more famous like New York art scene just didn't feel like what I was looking for. And the success that I was reaching didn't feel like success to me.
Mm.
There's a lot of like dealing with critics and then just like dealing with a lot of very interesting egos, dealing with a lot of judgment from my end. And I just wanted to release all of that. And the only way I felt like I could release it was to make an exit.
Mm.
And so there was no, I don't do things where I'm like, okay, I'll like gently close it off. I was like, I'm done. Like as of today on this expansive plane looking up at the stars that look like they're falling out of the sky, like I'm done and I'm not going back.
Yeah.
So I turned away from that. And that's when I focused more on writing. I wanted to become a writer and just radically restructured my relationship to what I thought success was.
Hmm. And can I ask, what is your relationship with judgment now? Because I feel like judgment is one of those things that's kind of coming up in your story a lot, like almost like, because I see judgment as not just criticism, it's also how we categorized and how we
Mm,
make decisions and like it goes in line with that 14-year-old you who was like trying to figure out why do people live the way they do, make the choices that they do. Um, yeah, tell me a little bit more. Have you like explored this, or is this a thread that you feel within yourself?
I love how you're looking at judgment, not just as what we think of judgment, where you're kind of like making a criticism, but like as a way of categorizing. I haven't thought of it in that way. I think that that's really really fascinating. For me, the judgment that was coming up in my life at that point felt like a stark contrast to compassion. So it felt like I lacked a lot of compassion because my judgment was rooted in criticism and critique, and probably categorization, unfairly so, of just like, you know, making assumptions and making things like fall into a neat category. So I could say, well, not that, but yes to this.
Mm-hmm.
And my relationship to that has shifted a lot, largely through, I feel like, my relationship to psychedelics, which has expanded my perception of what reality is and
Yeah.
what constructs are.
Mm-hmm.
So having constructs that are so rigid, where it's like, I'm a writer, or I'm a gallerist, or I'm a student, or I'm a mother, all of these things that help us make sense of the world are a lot more fluid and flexible in psychedelic states. Like, constructs just kind of have a tendency to melt away, and you can kind of see the ebbs and flows of identity and connection. And so it helped me shift my relationship to these more like hard, crystalline, judgmental states, and just bring more compassion into my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been one of the most radical shifts for me.
Yeah. So it's melting away of, well, every time you say constructs, I'm thinking of like the categories of like this and that, and like also separation. When we think about categories, I am in one category, you're in one category. And there's this like melting away that I have never had well, I don't know. I did, I smoked weed once. I didn't even smoke. I did a gummy, and I tried smoking once. I didn't like it. Nothing happened for me. Um, but I've done gummies before. But I've never felt that like experience that I hear people talk about with psychedelics. I also don't think all psychedelics are for me, but I definitely know that experience through meditation and ritual practice.
Yeah.
And yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about what happens when those categories fall away and that judgment falls away? What do you feel in those moments?
Yeah. So you're accessing very similar states when you're in meditation. So what psychedelics do is they quiet the default mode network, which is one of our systems for processing that holds all of the categorizations in. It stores a lot of like, oh, this thing happened in the past, so here's how I'm going to make sense of it in the future. It's kind of like the filter by which we read and interpret the world. And so that's very shaped by the narratives we buy into and the stories that we believe, and just our experiences that have shaped us. And so when you quiet that down, it offers you almost like a clean slate to look at things through. So without feeling like this means that, or this means this, or I had this experience in the past, so now I'm interpreting this to be this way, it opens up a lot more possibility for just looking at things the way that they are, which is a lot more neutral than we imagine. And meditation does a very similar thing, where it'll quiet that default mode network, so you can kind of tap into psychedelic states through breath work, meditation, ritual practice, and get that same experience. And to me, when all of that stuff falls away, there's this wonder and awe that comes up with it, almost like to an overwhelming degree, where I've just been like crying because I'm seeing something so beautiful in front of me that is there every day. It's a redwood tree.
Yeah.
But you just get to be so present in the moment without thinking about anything else that's going on in your life. And that full presentness is so epically beautiful.
You're reminding me of a moment I had this summer. This year has been, I've been going deeper into my meditation practice, and my own rituals. And I just remember going for a walk and looking and just like crying. It's like I go for this walk almost every day. Like here I am, just like, oh my God, the light, the trees. It's
Yes.
so beautiful. And I think what's like
Yes.
amazing with psychedelics is you almost like there's so much like momentum you kind of have to build with meditation. I feel like sometimes you have breakthrough moments, but to consistently be in that state where you can look at your life with fresh eyes, like that opportunity is so unique that psychedelics provide. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of your favorite experiences and how they came about? Like, yeah, because like I said, I'm totally new to the psychedelic world. And yeah, just tell me like, what is it like when you're starting to become high? Like, for us who don't know the experience at all, like, how would you describe it kind of like from start to finish?
I love that question because psychedelics to me is such a phased experience where there are these like very clear delineated moments of, oh, this is how you're going to be feeling now. Here's how you're feeling at the peak. And then here's how you're feeling as it relaxes. The first moments of feeling into psychedelics is a bodily experience for me. So your brain can process 11 million bits of information per second, but your conscious mind can only process 40 to 50 bits of information. That's like a massive change. And
Yeah.
so the way that your brain does that is by filtering all of the stuff, categorizing it neatly so you can just glance and say, okay, this is a room with a chair and I don't really need to worry about it. That's the kitchen. I don't need to like analyze every piece of this to make sense of it. And so psychedelics expand how much your brain is able to take in and process. And so everything just starts to become heightened. So for me, it starts with a sense in my body where I can feel my skin. And that is a
Oh,
very weird experience where
tell
you're
me what
just,
it's like.
it's like being hyper conscious that you're in a body, that
Yeah.
you have skin on the outside, it's holding your muscles in, there's stuff going on in the inside, and you can start to feel, well, this is my experience, but I'll start to feel all of my systems working. And I
Mm.
am so thankful that my body knows how to do all of that, because if I had to pay attention, it would just be like so overwhelming. There's so much that our body does for us and goes on. So the very first thing is I become kind of attuned to how much I am.
Mm.
And then it'll filter into a shift in vision and a shift in perception of just being able to see colors more clearly, to see details more vividly. I call it it's like being able to see in 4D essentially. Like you can really just
Yeah.
access, your brain can just process a lot more of that information. So you can notice simultaneously, like be conscious of your shadow while also watching the landscape change around you, and being aware of like the inner workings of your body. And the come up can be like an overwhelming experience for some people because you're just awakening so much all at once. That is normally your brain just like kind of shuts out because it's not relevant to our survival.
Mm-hmm.
And what comes after that, when that sort of quiets and you become more comfortable just being in this state of expanded awareness,
Mm-hmm.
is that gift of wonder, of awe, and of presentness that just opens so much possibility for you. So my
Mm-hmm.
mind's very active on psychedelics. A lot of the healing states will kind of close off the vision so that you can really sink and go internally, and you'll just start to have a lot of thoughts and process a lot of what's going on in your mind and what your body's bringing up. And then when you're kind of more directed outward, you're focusing less on that and more just like immersed in the outward experience.
So you can choose which you want to do, or is this happening simultaneously, or is it like different for each person? Yeah, like do you find that some people are more like outward focused and others are more internally focused? Tell me a little bit
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, there's a difference between what people are comfortable with, what they're used to, where they want to take it. And then there's also
Mhm.
a sense of like where the medicine's going to take you.
Mm.
So sometimes you want to be more external and avoid. And your stuff that's coming up is like, I'm going to force you to look at what's inside. I
Mhm.
had a really beautiful story from someone who had had a very traumatic experience in their 30s and they wanted to do psychedelic healing to kind of move past that because they realized they just weren't experiencing joy since that accident. And in their trip experience, they had the blindfold on. So there are things you can do to kind of like shut out the outside. You can put on headphones, listen to music, put a blindfold on to
Oh, wow.
create
Okay.
a more inward space.
Okay. Cool.
And
I didn't know
at
that.
one point, yeah. I mean, you can go frolic in the woods, which is one of my preferred ways of just connecting with nature and being in my power.
Hmm.
But a lot of the psychedelic healing states will just be like, let's put on a blindfold. That's like the standard.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. No, this is
Yeah.
really cool to me. Because when I think of psychedelics, I think about just like losing control. And like, I'm just like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, like, oh, healing is gonna happen. But I'm like, how? I feel like I'd probably end up butt naked somewhere. Like, like, how do we
And you will
control?
feel so good.
Maybe, maybe. I like honestly think my brain would probably be of the panic variety. Um, that's just my own theory on my
Yeah.
myself.
Well,
But
yeah. I think that's a
it's
really
yeah,
common feeling.
just panic, just pure panic.
Yeah. I mean, a common feeling that people think that they're going to experience, not what they
Oh,
actually
okay.
experience.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it's really common to go just I think again when we're talking about constructs and the way that like we've internalized messaging, this psychedelic messaging has been really like panic inducing, like it seems like you're going to lose your mind when they show like I just have like the cartoon image of like everything totally bugging out and you're in this like
Mm-hmm,
alternate
mm-hmm.
universe. And to me, it's so fascinating what our relationship as a culture to alcohol is, which
Yes. Let's get into it.
let's fucking go there.
Yeah.
Because we've sanctioned one of the most like horrifying experiences, not only from like a felt state of being wildly out of control, at high doses, um, getting sick, like making your body physically ill. The death threshold is like pretty close to what some people ride.
Yeah.
And because it's so culturally accepted, we're not so terrified that like, oh, I'm going to have a beer and I'm just going to totally lose my shit. Whereas with psychedelics, even something like microdosing, people are a little hesitant because they're like, I don't want to go crazy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
When you look at the statistics of harm,
Yeah.
you have no like it's no comparison to something like alcohol, even um
My brain is firing like 100 things
fire
at me
fire
at the
away,
moment.
fire away.
Like, oh my God, there's so many things. Like, it's 100% like the way that we have been brought to think about it. And it's like true about so many subjects, where it's like it's sanctioned under these parameters. Kind of reminds me of Christianity and sex. It's like under these parameters, you may partake, right? Um, and it's not really well considered. It's not based on research. It's all about feeling, really. And
Yeah.
the little that I read of the book that I mentioned, I know that that's like historically it's part of the media and like how we were introduced to psychedelics as a
Yeah.
country, I feel like in America. Um, very, very interesting. Oh, wow. There's also something to say about our fear of madness, of like
Yeah.
losing our minds. So I'm
Yeah.
from Jamaica, and this is something that I like come up against in my family all the time. And this is also part of the reason I don't partake in psychedelics because my family does have so my one of my grandmas had 14 kids, the other had 12, which is like massive amount of people. Especially as they start to multiply. But I find that things that might have gone dormant for certain generations prop up. And one of those is schizophrenia. And so there's also like this fear. And I think it's not just within my family in Jamaica as a whole, there's this fear of like anything to do with the mind. And there's a fear of therapy, there's a fear of any like kind of mental awareness,
Yeah.
and it's associated with psychosis. It's associated with
Yeah.
losing your mind. And it's interesting because when you look back at a lot of spiritual traditions, those were sanctioned places for you to quote unquote lose your mind,
Yeah.
to come out of the ego, to experience. And like that was essential to be able to experience oneness, to experience those categories fall away, that judgment fall away, and to be able to come back and see your life differently. And even within that state, to see life differently. Like it's essential. It's so essential. I mean, think about it. It's like if you had your computer running. This is a bad habit I had in college where I would just have my computer running all week, never turn it off, right? And so all the tabs are open, all the, things are running on all cylinders all the time. Imagine if you never turned your computer off. And I feel like that's the experience of either ritual practice or psychedelics, whatever tool you use, is being able to turn your computer off for a second and be
Hmm.
like, oh, wait on. This is not, it doesn't have to be what it I was making it to be, Oh,
Yeah.
my brain is in love. Amazing.
Yeah, yeah. It's the fear of madness was one of the big hypes that the government put out when they started to there's some beautiful documentaries. Michael Pollan's book is phenomenal. He also did like a video series that I haven't watched, but I hear it's like more digestible because that book is thick.
It's thick.
Um
It's a
is
thick
thick.
one. She
I'm
got a
all
big
for it,
booty.
but
Mm.
I'm all for big books. He kind of also touches upon the hysteria that ensued when the government recognized that they couldn't control psychedelics. And a lot of the anti-war movement was they were the ones kind of embracing psychedelics because when all of those constructs fall away and you start to recognize your deep connection with other people and all of the just like all of the bullshit goes out the window, you can really start to see what how much harm is done by holding on to the constructs. And so of course all of the counterculture is trying to undo stuff that the government wants to hold very dearly on. And so you can just watch the switch and like campaigns and shutting down research and
Yeah.
producing a lot of the feelings that we still have today. It's wild to see how these constructs are passed down, even when they don't feel like they're so in your face. We still
Yes.
collect the stories from them.
Yes. I honestly think words have like an energy around them. And,
Yes.
me being the pussy queen, it's been about changing the energy around pussy. And I
Yes.
feel like psychedelics also has an energy around it where it's like it's the way that you hear it being spoken about, whether it's in whispers or like, the way that it's reported on. I feel like all these
Yeah.
things where, like you said, our brain is taking in a million things, even if consciously we're only, picking out 40, 50 items, whatever, we're still taking that in. And
Yeah.
so it's like a lot of it is unconscious, our dislike or our fear of psychedelics. And you are helping me to kind of, even though I don't know that I would partake just because I know it's a risk if you have like schizophrenia or whatever in your family, but
Mm-hmm.
it's helping me to understand the experience and to I mean, I don't particularly, I don't like judge. I mean, we all judge, but I try not to judge whatever modality people use because I think what helps, right? Um, but you're helping me, and I also don't want to share that energy when I talk about psychedelics. So thank you so much for
Mm-hmm.
starting
Mm-hmm.
that dismantling within me as well, because you're
Hey.
100% right. We're totally used to things like alcohol, but something like psychedelics, which can, from what I hear, the experience is just transformative. I don't know that I hear a lot of transformative experiences about alcohol use.
Usually it's like the moment that you decide you're not going to drink is the
Yeah.
transformational moment.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, but it's so interesting the things that have become normalized. It's like everything that disconnects you from the true
Yes.
you and disconnects you from
Yes.
others is what
Yes.
historically Western society has like, yeah, that's the thing for us.
Yes. Yes.
And it's just so it's like wow. Wow. Just wow. Why do you think
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is? What's your theory on that?
I think it's a form of control. I mean, I think if you look at how hesitant our culture is to like sit with feelings and to process other people's experience, um, that's a that's dangerous because when you start to relate to other people, you start to lose the divisions, and the divisions are what hold people in power. So I do think that there's um, a sort of consciousness to how we're constructing things. Again, if you look at the LSD story, and there's like beautiful documentaries that show how the government was trying to use this substance as mind control
Mhm.
and for the military, and how it totally backfires because again, when you're on psychedelics, like all you want to do is listen to the birds sing and not like go after people with guns. Like
Yeah.
it just, the medicine does not let you do that. And so, um, alcohol keeps people complacent. It keeps people kind of operating at that lower level. And that's a lot of the systems that we have in place help us stay at this kind of like low level where it's really hard to step into our power. And I don't know if that part is necessarily conscious, but I recognize that a lot of these constructs that we have in a lot of like when we're just talking about substances and the way that we process our feelings, like mental health not being very accessible to a
Mhm.
vast majority of people, both by like the stories created around it and by the like insurance field and stuff like that. We are limiting our ability to step into our power and to release ourselves from a lot of like the traumas that we've had, the fears that we've had, and come into a greater sense of connection and intimacy. And I think that that is by and large a form of crowd control.
I could totally see that, especially when I hear stories about, what was done. I don't even know which decade when, psychedelic research was squashed. It's like, oh, that's very intentional. And I guess for me, I also like I'm interested in the progression of consciousness and like at what pace can we evolve?
Yeah.
I look at my own story and at times it feels like I'm healing lightning fast. And at other times actually I'm gonna edit that. At every time it feels like I'm moving lightning fast. And I will look back and be like, oh my God, I had that thought a month ago. I had this conversation with myself today where I was like, wow, so it's like on some level, I feel like we're moving as fast as we can to, we're going as quickly as we can to that evolved state, that next level of human consciousness. So I like give a lot of grace, and there's so much like unchecked trauma, which is what causes us to want to disconnect from our body because it's too painful,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so hearing experiences of people who are like melting into your body, blah, 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 it's like, no, I don't want that. That sounds crazy. You know,
Right.
if I were to actually go into my mind, I would lose my mind. If like, you know, I could see someone, even if it's not a conscious thought, like feeling that way of like, I mean, I think of my own parents, my own family members, where it's like to even peek under the hood a little bit, to even question an emotion, it's like I'm automatically like, no, no, I can't,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's just not having the tools from an early age. And thankfully, your story, you were starting to reach for the tools, even if initially you reached for drugs that you eventually had to cut off. They were, you know, a step in like the direction of I'm looking for that thing that's going to help me because I know ultimately my like North Star is to connect back to me and to
Yeah.
experience these stories that you were probably hearing about in Egyptian. What was it that you were looking into at the age of
Egyptian
10 for little
mythology.
yes, Egyptian mythology, the little miracle baby that you are. And I think it's so cool that like people come in. I have a younger cousin who like similar to you. She's like, Unique, can you tell me about how to access my intuition? And I'm like, darling, like these to me are
Yes.
advanced questions. You're
Yes.
little baby you, like I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how much to tell her and how much to hold back. But you're telling me like, and I think about myself at that age, like I could have handled it. You know, I felt like a grown woman. And I think a lot of that is having to step into a parenting role way too early and trauma and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But you're like, you're helping me to feel like, you know what, I could let her in on more. I could, you know, give her more because we, you know, are reaching, we're all reaching to come back to us. And because we have made progress, that's happening at younger ages.
Yeah.
Um, wow, beautiful. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like we will hold on to what we have capacity for at the time, you know? So that's true for healing. You're able to process it lightning fast. You know, I think because you're an intentional healer and you're like, I'm doing this with intention, with purpose, and with a tool set. Whereas a lot of people are kind of like grasping at healing in bits and pieces when it's thrust upon them because maybe that intentionality isn't there, those tool sets aren't there for whatever reason. So I think it can be both fast and slow.
Oh yeah. When I say I'm going lightning fast, I feel like I'm going lightning fast, but when I look back, it's like, wow, I still feel like I'm going slow. Like it's time for
Yeah.
rewards. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying, which is like I feel like we're developing as quickly as we can, you know,
Yeah.
with all
Mm-hmm.
the blocks that we have, resistance, whatever it is. I think we're all gonna get there. I personally don't think, you know, when we die, that's it. I think we continue on our journey. So I'm learning in this season of my life to kind of relax and not really judge people where they are, right? To be at ease because I realize judgment is
Yeah.
really that feeling of not feeling at ease too for me.
Yeah.
It's that wanting to control and wanting to like, I don't know, like shape society, like, let's go faster. We have the answers. They're freaking here. Why are we still doing
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It's like so frustrating because it's like we have all the answers, not all of them, but we have a lot of them, and we have the answers that we need to get to the next step. But
Yes.
it's like we're moving at a snail's pace.
Yes. 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 One of my favorite quotes of all time is knowledge isn't power, it's potential
Mm.
power. Because knowledge without action means nothing. So it's like we know all of these things. And this is actually one of the most important um, one of the most important things in psychedelics is a lot of people will think that just having the experience is the healing. So just because I did an
Yes.
ayahuasca ceremony, I had all of these revelations and now I'm going to be different. They go back to their
Yes.
lives and then 2 weeks later they're like, shit's the same, you know, I should probably go back for
Yes.
another healing journey. And it's like, no. And the problem is because you've had this incredible epiphany. Like, yes, you will get so many downloads through psychedelic medicine, the thing that matters more than that download or that experience is how you show up differently moving forward. So if you're not
Yes.
taking action, and this is what I bring into my practice. So this is like, we will do a lot of stuff to get to the root of like, here are the core systemic things that are affecting the way that you want to show up. You absolutely have to integrate. So you have to start doing practices that allow you to step into that new identity and to start acting aligned with that identity so that you can look back and say, oh, actually, I have changed. It might be slow, it might be incremental, but I am making shifts toward the person who I know I can be, that person who I do want to be.
Okay. I'm really glad you said this because this is a misconception. I'm realizing as you're saying it, that it's a misconception that I have. Right? It's this idea, and it's actually something that I've kind of debunked within my own kind of spiritual practice where I was always like waiting for one of those moments, right? One of those meditations that's just gonna like launch me into outer space. Yeah. And after that moment, I will be different. And I don't have to do
Yes.
all this everyday healing, journaling, whatever. No, because I'll be like fundamentally different. And whenever I hear people talk about their psychedelic experience, it's what comes to mind. I'm like, okay, so they just like woke up brand new and everything. The way they talk about it, it sounds like it was not going back to work. They saw the light and they went forward into the light. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they really integrate it. And I'm like, no, that's obviously unique. That's not how you need someone to hold you through that experience. And I think that's what's so powerful about the kind of like psychedelic coaching space or psychedelic healers is that you're giving people that structure. Once after you have the experience, like, okay, this is what you need to make sure that you're taking what you just experienced into your life and it's not that you have to keep coming back. So I guess my question is, when people are done with their psychedelic experience, how do they work with you? Like how does it, yeah, like tell me a little bit more about what comes next. You just said, you integrate it, but what does that look like?
Yeah. So interestingly, the vast majority of my clients I work with, we don't do psychedelic medicine together. What I'll do with a lot of my clients instead is we will access psychedelic states similarly to how your meditation practice brings you into that quietness of the default mode network. We'll do that through visualization exercises and different somatic practices. And the integration component comes through pleasure practices. So I almost consider myself like a personal trainer where it's like, I'm going to give you exercises to rep those muscles so that you can start building toward more pleasure, toward more release, whatever the goals that we're working on, you'll get practices that help you go out and show up differently. And whether we do that through like a microdose practice where microdosing can help. One of the things that psychedelics does is it increases the kind of the pathways, the neural pathways that your brain can take. So it increases communication within the brain. So when you're tightly grooved down a habit path, your brain fires because it knows this stimulus should produce this response. And you just kind of keep doing that over and over. So when you want to break patterns, it's difficult because your brain is so grooved that it's like, we're just going to keep firing this pattern. And if you try to switch it, we're going to kind of slide back into the groove because it's the path of least resistance. So microdosing practices or macrodosing practices can help you more radically shift those habit patterns and smooth out the grooves and start firing different habits. Mm-hmm. So I'm working with the same kind of concept, but just through repetition and through peak experience. So psychedelics are a peak experience. Like you're going to go out, you're going to have that holy shit moment, and then you're going to come back and need to practice regrooving so that you can align with that peak experience. Trauma is another peak experience where it creates that pathway really deep because it's like this was a major thing we had to learn for survival. So we're going to groove that in. That's essential to our survival. It's going to be really hard to decondition that. And so if you can simulate more peak experiences, you're going to have a better time shifting those grooves than if you're just doing it through simple repetition, which works. It's great. You just have to understand that habits take a long time to rewire if you're doing just by rote repetition. But if you can attach that to an elevated state, so pleasure, orgasm, shuts down the default mode network almost completely, and you're just locked into the present moment, that becomes a pivotal shift where you can then say, okay, we're going to visualize and imagine a different reality. And then our brain's going to take that and say, let's start showing up in that way.
Yes, that is intentional pleasure practicing. That's sex magic, pussy magic, whatever you want to call it. I love it.
Yes.
I feel like it's like the time to encode what you desire, like the new you. But it's also the time to experience and explore, like, oh, I can like shift my identity this way. Like I feel a different aspect of myself that that's always been here, but I haven't been able to feel it or access it before.
Yeah.
Beautiful. You can only go as deep as you practice. Get your Sensual Refresher Kit at uniquebell.com/kit for 5 revitalizing practices to help you reconnect to your body, pussy, and sensuality. From a slow like honey breast massage to a gently trauma healing pussy massage, you'll receive 5 daily practices as well as 5 daily emails detailing the practices and the benefits of each and how to get the most out of your practice. Head to uniquebell.com/kit, also linked below, to get started today. Awesome. Yeah. So what are some of the, like when you say microdosing, what are the psychedelics that you work with? Like not you, but your clients, what do they usually work with? What are we talking about here?
Yeah. So we work with psilocybin. So microdosing on magic mushrooms. And it's usually like a 0.2 to a 0.5 dose. It's enough to just like feel like you've had a cup of coffee, but it's a different sensation. Like you feel more focused, more connection. Sometimes like my experience with microdosing is I want to be on the computer less, but I don't mind like cleaning the house more. So it's kind of like will align you with slightly different activities. It's amazing for soothing anxiety. It's amazing for soothing depression and kind of just helping you slide out of those grooves in a very gentle way, because it's subperceptible doses. So you're not really like feeling the psychedelic effects until you get toward the threshold dose. And one of the most important practices that I have my clients do is journal how they're feeling, because you can't understand what's changing within you, especially when it's like these subtle changes, if you're not measuring that. So we want to measure things like mood. We want to measure things like stress and sleep, and just seeing how your patterns are affecting you and seeing what those little like granular alignments are, what you want to spend more time on, what feels like it's more meaningful to you, and then start to pattern different habits and that bring you toward those spaces.
Yeah. So it's like becoming really attuned to you, right? Knowing what works for you, learning your body, learning, okay, this shifts my mood in this way. It's like optimizing. I love that. Okay, awesome. Yeah. And so what is the usual like end goal and like desired way of operating in life for your clients? Like, I know this is a big question, but I'm like thinking about, so like, I know that you're using the microdosing and it's not very noticeable, but it's actually creating change. Are you ultimately wanting to get off the microdosing, like what, and be able to do that on your own, to hold that new energy on your own? What does it look like, end results for your clients?
Yeah, the microdosing specifically, I mean, their desires are so I want to say like multiplicitous. It's not a word. They're so varied.
I love making up words. So
I'm such a fan. a lot of times we're working on pleasure specific stuff. So just like opening up more sensory experience, just being able to feel more in their body, being able to be more present. Microdosing is really great at just like kind of helping train your brain mindfulness. So you can almost look at it as like the practices you get are the exercises, and then the microdose adds weight. So it's just going to help you get a little stronger, a little faster, and to kind of remove some of the barriers that are making it a little bit stickier and a little bit harder. And so, yeah, we might microdose. We have like a microdose protocol for a specific length of time so that we can step into kind of the new, I'm going to just like keep running with the strength metaphor, but I feel like I'm just going to go like way too abstract. But so like if we're working up toward
I don't think that's too abstract. People get that. Yeah, like you're building your muscle. Like I think it's so relevant.
Yeah, you're building. So it's like if it's a pleasure muscle, it's like I want to get to a certain point. It's like, okay, we're not just getting to that point with microdosing. That doesn't matter. That's just like a tool that we're using to help get there. But a lot of that strength is coming from the practices that you're doing. And the microdose is helping you sink more deeply into those practices to experience them a little bit more fully, because your brain is getting a little jolt in what it can process. And so you don't lose that when you stop microdosing. You've built that muscle up to that point. So then if you want to continue another protocol, again, it's just adding a little bit more weight, adding a little bit more juice, and then going out and repping those muscles.
Beautiful. Awesome. So it's just like giving yourself a little espresso shot, right? Or a little oomph to your pleasure practice. I love that. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so I can imagine that this is actually really supportive for specific groups as well. Like who do you think really uniquely benefits from psychedelic sensuality, who maybe wouldn't feel met in other, through other modalities, or one that doesn't involve microdosing?
I think women who have a tendency to overthink and be in their head and who struggle to come into their body, like that area is such a sweet spot, because it will just give you that nudge to drop in out of your head into your body. You can definitely get in your head with psychedelics, and that's a practice. Like you have to practice coming out of that. Your body will be more awake, so sometimes it is easier to drop into it. Being able to add in elements for sensory experience that will bring you into a more present state is just so powerful. And so I think you start to see the benefits really quickly in a group of women who are just like, one, as women, we're inundated with disempowered constructs and disempowered states. So all of my focus and my practice is getting women into more empowered states.
Yeah.
And the like, just making that a little bit easier is such an advantage for high-powered brain ladies.
I love that. I mean, I think that's definitely the women who listen to this podcast too. It's like, I used to be an overthinker if I'm not careful, especially, when I go through, whether it's like a really intense, like intensity, I'll just call it intensity in relationships, compulsive thinking, or just like you're unable to turn the brain off. So I could totally see that being very beneficial. And this is a question that I have for you that you might not have the answer to, but it's something that I get asked a lot, and I'm always like, what is a tool that's gonna, I would love to be able to point people who come to me with this problem to someone. So I got asked a lot about like help for people who are on medication for depression, or something else that is essentially numbing their sensory input. So is that something that could help? Is that what psychedelic could help with? I'm not phrasing this correctly. Is psychedelic an option for them?
Yeah, psychedelics are the statistics, and I don't think I'm going to pull numbers out of my brain because my brain does not work with numbers, but the stats on the success rate of psychedelics and helping people not just like manage depression, but like completely change their relationship to it and move from I was identifying as a depressed person and now I don't even have that identity anymore.
Yeah.
They are like a miracle medicine
Yes.
for that.
Yes.
And so for anxiety, like severe anxiety, OCD, depression, psychedelics can
Yes.
be really helpful. And that's kind of where my fascination between NLP and psychedelics intersects too, is being able to shift out of the identity state of identifying with depression and being able to deploy a lot of mind body rewiring practices, because it's, again, depression is a practiced state. Like
Yes.
you've
100%.
from circumstances, it's not a blame thing. There's like circumstances that your body's trying to survive. And those are the mechanisms because, well, there's a lot of reasons, but like we have a negativity bias for survival reasons. And that can like lend itself really closely to becoming in a depressed state. But depression is a state, not an identity. And so to shift out of that state, you can start to retrain your mind body connection, and psychedelics are going to make that a lot easier. NLP is really great for that too, which is why I love the combination of the two of them.
Yes, so I would actually love to get into how they work together in your practice, but I also want to say, like, almost as if I could emphasize or highlight this portion of the audio because it's so big, and I've worked with clients who are on medication. It's just I could see where it's like they're almost there, but it's like
Yeah.
that piece of being able to let go. We don't have enough time, or like it takes so much more time to rewire that
Yes.
using the mind
Yeah.
body connection, and it is effective, but it takes time. So having something that can give you that boost and that advantage, because it's not you know, I'm someone who actually, you know, I have a history of depression, and it's something that can get triggered if I experience trauma and all these things, but I have so many amazing tools
Yeah.
where I know how to manage it, and I know how to pull myself out, and I know how to reach for support, but that's not the case for everyone. And, you know, just having something that gives you that little advantage, I can't tell you how like big that is. So if this is you and you're listening, please contact Jessica. It's huge. It's huge. And, you know, just like having something that's like reliable, because I've had, you know, little breakthroughs with clients, but it's like because of the state where they go back to the, oh, but it's not going to
Yeah.
work again. I know we
Yeah.
had that breakthrough in that session, but it's not going to happen again. And like just like trying to break through that thinking,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, you know, so just having something, give yourself that advantage, give yourself the support that you need. Microdosing, an option for you. Talk about it with your your
Yeah.
provider and reach out
Yeah.
to Jessica.
And just
Oh
and
my
just keep in
goodness.
mind that it's everything that your brain is doing is a practice. And
Yeah.
give yourself grace, because, you know, to be in a healing container for, I don't know how long you work with your clients, but say it's like 6 months, but you've had, you know, 13 years of practice deep depressive states. It is going to take time. And those peak states, like a psychedelic peak experience, there are other ways to get those peak states, can help you make a more radical shift much more quickly and then maintain it by repatterning. But to give yourself grace, because it's not just like it should be done. We had an epiphany and now my life should be radically different. You know, as you say, it's like it's a conscious
Yeah.
practice, and it's not necessarily an easy practice because your muscles are conditioned in an opposite way. You're needing to kind of not only build new muscles, but work against the muscles that are pulling you back into that. Oh, but it's
Yes.
not going to work for me.
Oh my goodness. And I think what's been big for me is also releasing like, oh, this almost makes me want to cry. Like, oh, like I should be able to do it. I should be able to do it on my own. And I, you know,
Yeah.
I am someone, I'm saying this as someone who I feel like largely I've had to, you know, do so much on my own, but it's like letting go of that and like, oh my gosh, I am worthy of support. And everyone in the world has support. You know what? don't listen to anyone who says they've gotten anywhere on their own. 100%. They've gotten there through support. So why not give yourself the support that you need, whatever that looks like? So I hope this conversation has also helped, for anyone who was carrying like fears around psychedelics or microdosing to just open this world up for you. Okay, so let's hear a little bit more about how psychedelics and NLP come together in your sensuality coaching.
So a lot of the kind of science behind both are, like I said, linked to being able to see without constructs. And that for me is such a necessary starting point when we're even talking about something as simple as like, I want to experience stronger orgasms. Say your pleasure ceiling is just like not exactly where you want it to be. The way that we work on expanding is by going into what the core beliefs are. And those are things that'll come up in psychedelic states. Those are the things that we'll discover through talking. So my background is as an English literature student. So I read, that's why I like big books. Like I read a lot. And I, in my sessions, will write a lot. So I'll be kind of like writing verbatim what a lot of my clients are saying. And then I go in and I look for patterns, which is what I'm acutely attuned toward. And so when we find a pattern, we can kind of say, these are all of the threads that this core belief is connecting to. So if we can work on this core belief, you're not only going to expand your pleasure ceiling, your confidence is going to go up because it's attached to, say it's a core belief of I'm not worthy of pleasure. Because that's the cultural messaging and that's the experience that you've had. And it could also open up so much more around like feeling safe in your body. Yes. So we look for these patternings and work to decondition the mind and the body. The body's holding on to stuff that your mind might think like, oh, logically, I know I'm worthy of pleasure, but it's not felt in my body. And so the neuro-linguistic programming also comes in where we're working with mind-body rewiring tools. So essentially reframing and filling your mind with positive messaging. My whole thing is like affirmations are great if they're tied to an emotional state to anchor it into the body. So we'll do like dance integration where it's like, take your affirmation, take your mantra, take your intention and go dance what that feels like. What does it feel like to dance as a wildly orgasmic being? Right?
Yeah.
How does it feel to just sit there and do tapping? So we'll do like EFT tapping. How does it feel to tap that into the cells of your body? We'll also do a lot of like audio reprogramming. So I'll create custom audios for my clients just based on whatever stuff is coming up for them, where they can go on guided visualizations. I would say like one of the main modalities that I work in is taking a psychedelic state and just using what would happen in that format as a guided visualization. I did not explain that well, but basically it's like having people.
No, I get it.
Okay.
Like almost like so you experience your psychedelic experience and you're reliving it as a visualization kind of thing, or like translating what it could be like.
Yeah. So like you, Unique, have not had a psychedelic experience, but I'll give you an audio that will simulate a psychedelic experience to reprogram something in your body.
So wait, like, are you going to seriously give me an audio? Because I just got really excited.
I will send you an audio. I will send you an audio.
I was like, ooh.
Yeah, you just got yourself a custom audio.
Okay, yes. Thank you so much. Because I one of the things I learned, so I study with Layla Martin and she teaches this practice of like I'm like trying to find the correct words because I love the wording, but it's basically, it's like right on the cusp for me. But you're essentially experiencing a substance without actually taking it. So even as we're talking about psychedelic experiences, I also have a very active mind. And so I'm
Yes.
picturing all the like, oh, like what would it feel like to feel my organs, to feel my skin for the first time? And so I think we can experience at least a bit. I know it's not probably going to be exactly like the real thing, but a piece of it just through visualization. So I think it's really cool that you incorporate that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's studies that show that your brain activates in the same way if you're like viewing something or reading something, which is like I cry
Yes.
during commercials because like I'm hypersensitive to like my brain's just firing mirror neurons and saying like this is my experience right now that I'm reading about or watching. And so yeah, that's exactly the what I'm harnessing there is giving you that your brain is having that experience, and especially great for people with active imaginations because you really get to sink into it and experience that.
I love that. That will be the psychedelic for me since, just family history wise, I don't necessarily
Yeah.
want to play with it.
Yeah.
But that is like the experience that fits me. And I also feel like just because of my own practice, like I would be totally open to experiencing heightened levels. So I'm very excited for that
Okay. You'll
on
have to
you.
let me know how it goes for you.
We'll come back and we'll talk about it. Oh man, I'm so excited and like refreshed from our conversation. I love your approach to your work and I love how personalized the experience is. You know, listeners, if you're not a coach, the idea of like someone creating an customized audio, this is something I used to do for clients as well. It is such a sweet experience, right? If you're looking for someone to like literally take you step by step and really hold you through the process, Jessica is doing that. She is here for you. So I love your approach to it, like all the different things that you're pulling on, NLP, how the nervous system works, our brains, also understanding how trauma is affecting our brains, like all these things. Beautiful, tremendous. I love you. I love your work. I'm excited. I
Love
love
you too.
this.
I'm so excited to share this conversation with you.
Okay, so let me think about because I just have so many questions, and I think we're probably gonna have to have another episode. I'll probably have to like re-listen to this and like let it marinate. If you would like to come back on, you are more than welcome because I my worldview has been opened. I have a
That's
brand new take on life.
yes. Yes, that's kind of one of the goals of psychedelics and the work that I do is again like shattering that ceiling that's bound by constructs. So like when we have these stories and narratives, we can't see past them a lot of times to know what is out there and what's possible for us. So you just
You're doing it just by
shift that.
talking about it with me. I haven't taken a single mushroom. So I hope you're having the same experience. Okay. So I have another question. I think we talked a little bit about your good psychedelic experiences. Have you ever had any that's like really exquisite, really divine? I know you have an article on cosmic orgasms, and I read through that and I loved it. I was like, ooh, I just love anyone having cosmic orgasms too. And it's a really juicy article. Please go check it out. I'll have it linked in the show notes, but I also want to know, have you had experiences that were not so great or, how do you manage like the variety? Do you feel that you're consistent? Your experiences are consistent the more that you've gotten, I guess, good at managing and knowing, okay, I can manage my experience by putting on headphones or,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for those of us who are like, okay, probably our first experience may not be a cosmic orgasm, and it may not be like, what should we expect? What's the variation of experiences that people go through?
That's a great question. I like to call it like a psychonautic adventure. Those it is a skill that you practice. So it's like you can get good at navigating the psychedelic states. Again, at higher doses, you're a little bit more along for the ride. It's kind of like the way that I view like the dosages is akin to like the white water rafting like grading system. So it's like you can kind of control your boat if you're on like a lower wave raft experience. My
Yeah.
words were dying in my head. But if you, as you go up to like more whitewater rapids, you're like, I'm along for the ride. I know how to manage my state, but I am like surrendering to the experience. And a lot of the variance in trips have been when I don't surrender to the experience. So either I'm
Okay.
expecting an outcome, or if I'm clinging too tightly to chasing an idea or something. Let me put this into context. So, like, I've never had what I would say a bad trip. I've had difficult trips, trips that were
Okay.
just harder than others. The difficulty often comes up because so many synapses are firing in my brain, and I'm such a problem solver. I'm such a thinker. I like want to solve all of the world's problems. And there's sometimes something that can happen in psychedelics where you like feel on the edge of epiphany. And so you
Mm.
kind of cling to what's going to take you there, and you can start like really just exercising your brain, and you're kind of spinning your wheels, and then epiphany will move out. I found that in those moments, what I can surrender is when I release a lot of that difficulty of like, I know I'm so close, but I've done it enough times that I know I'm not going to like get there to where I want to go. And I'm just going to surrender and release that. And that practice has been really powerful and important for me in negotiating my
Yes.
relationship to
Ooh,
the downloads.
chills. Chills, girl, chills. Okay. So that actually is one of the, oh man, one of the key components that I like to incorporate in Pussy Academy and in all my work is like you're doing it not for the solution or even the orgasm or the peak experience. You're
Yes.
doing it for the love of pussy, or in this case,
Yes.
for the love of experiencing, for the love of being here. And that is
Yes.
such a juicy mind shift. And that just gave me an answer to a question that I was asking in meditation earlier today. So I'm gonna have to re-listen to this and hold on to that.
Ooh.
Like just I don't know, existing. I'm right now this year for me has been learning how to, I want to say, be in my body on a daily basis and really allow every like the things that I experience in my pleasure practices to infuse my work, to experience, to infuse anything, everything, my walks, going to the grocery store, you name it. And like, where do I want to rest my consciousness? How do I want to approach life? Because previously my life was all about meeting big goals, right? Like it was all about the grading and the like, I'll be successful when I achieve blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And I am finding I just like, I'm looking for the motivation, not looking for the motivation because I'm very motivated, but oh, this is actually a question that I was asked when I was dating a few years ago. I met this guy who's very spiritual, but not very grounded. Couldn't really find a motivation to, he wanted to, be of service or start coaching or something, but couldn't really, find the motivation to do it because he just really loved being in that high ecstasy state.
Mm.
And he was just like, how are you able to do both? And honestly, looking back, it was just the residual of my perfectionism driving me. With no like,
Yeah.
and from the awareness that I have now, I also know that I've been healing just I don't necessarily want to go straight into all the messiness of all the details, but I've been healing things from childhood where it's like, oh my God, I see why I've been approaching life that way, or I see why I think I need to constantly be of service or be helping. And I've been leaning out of that
Mm.
identity for me. And so now it's like, where does the motivation to work or do anything come from, right? So it's like shifting out of that perfectionist or work hard or whatever it is. Where does the drive come from? And I think doing it for the love of experiencing, for the love of life, for the love of pussy, for the love of joy, whatever it is the shift that I personally need. I don't know, we just went off on a tangent, but
Oh, yes. No, I love that
that's
because you're opening
yeah.
yourself up to so much more play, right? You're
Yes.
opening yourself up to like that curiosity and that wonder and like, what happens if I go over here? What happens if I go over here? What happens if I step back from something I was holding on so tightly to? And like
Yes.
being willing to exist in that unknown is like, that's a lot. That's a brave step.
It is a lot. Thank you. I'm feeling very seen in our conversation today. It has been a lot, learning to rest with the unknown and to shift out of like the goal metric and to surrender, really, like you're saying.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
huge. It's huge. You could do it through pussy, you can do it through psychedelics.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, I
Absolutely.
love it. I love it. Okay. I know we have to talk about what you're doing currently, which is helping women alchemize their breakup experiences. Um, yeah, why don't we get into it? Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit
So,
more.
I was kind of looking at where are our patterns the strongest. And I think that when we're in relationship is when a lot of our childhood stuff comes up, and it's when a lot of our relationship stuff comes up. And breakups are a unique opportunity because they come with so much pain. And so, like I said, our brains are grooved by repetition, but those peak experiences can allow us a moment to shift out of the groove and to really like utilize that raw energy and that raw power. And I went through a breakup fairly like 2 years ago where the pain was intense. In my experience, my only way to do it is to go through it. Like my survival mechanism is freeze, not flight. I wish I was like a workaholic or like a workoutaholic, but I just like stone cold sober up and I go into let me use my tools. Let me develop more tools. Let me use these tools. Let me channel all of this pain into power. So I come out of this and like a radicalized, like badass. And I see so many women in particular, men do this too. We just white knuckle it through breakups. We just like hold on. We are like, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to, you know, distract myself when I need to, lean into friends when I need to. We have healthy and unhealthy coping mechanisms. And that's great. It gets us through the breakup. But there's so much power and energy that's being generated in that state that could be used toward this like radical readjustment to identity, to relationship patterns, to clearing all of the like childhood wounds that come up of like, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, I'm too much. And so I wanted to create a way that we could use one of the most painful times of our experience, loss and breakups, to step into this empowered state where you can look back and just say like, I'm so thankful that I went through that experience.
Yeah.
Because now look at me.
Yes. Personally, I don't know. It's one of the things that I had conversed with the universe about. I'm like, can we break this? Because I understand that it's good for me, but I'm kind of tired of the breakup glow ups, is what I call them. Every breakup, I have a glow up because I do what you exactly what you say. I
I feel
go and
like
I
I'm done with the
unpack.
glow ups.
Yes, I'm like, okay, I know I'm glowing up, but I also can glow up without the breakup. Lord, universe,
Yeah.
like we got to work
Yes.
out a different system. But you're absolutely right. Breakups are uniquely, they give you that opportunity to see exactly, oftentimes exactly what's going wrong in your relationships and your way of relating to people. It usually, traumatized selves come up, like where it's like the fear of abandonment, all that pain. And that is a portal. It's an opportunity to heal. And so it's something that doesn't come up on, every day. So it's such a unique opportunity if you're in that state. I know it's painful, and having a
Yeah.
container to do so is so helpful. So how do you use,
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's the same as what you've shared with us before, but I'm assuming in your Breakup Alchemy program, are you necessarily incorporating microdosing, or is this kind of separate from that? What can people expect?
Yeah. All my work is separate from microdosing unless you have a microdosing practice or you're interested in starting one. It's like the way that I work with psychedelics more is getting you into that psychedelic mind state and bringing in
Oh, I see. I
psychedelic wisdom
see.
into the healing. Mm-hmm. So the breakup
Oh,
alchemy is essentially the same as just the way that I coach, which is a 6-month container. It's one-on-one sessions where we'll do a lot of like the talking to get the patterns coming out and to find those core wounds, with weekly pleasure practices built in so that you're processing actively, and you're also patterning in new habits and behaviors that allow you to show up differently.
yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And so people don't necessarily have to microdose to work with you.
Yeah, absolutely not. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. So it's just if that's something that you want to add, you can add it. Or if you're already working with someone and you're microdosing, then I got it now. I
Yeah,
guess I was a little bit confused.
I know it's confusing. I mean, I really wanted to blend the two, and just because the legality of it is still a little, it's not just blessedly legal everywhere. I'll be facilitating retreats in the future where we do those will be like intense peak experiences, because you'll not only be doing a psychedelic healing session, but there will be like repatterning and reprogramming activities that you can participate in. And so those are going to be like juicy and amazing. So look for those in
Amazing.
the future. I'll send you an invite. You don't necessarily have to do psychedelics there, but yeah.
Amazing. I mean, I would love to. I mean, I still don't think I would just
Yeah.
because of family history.
I
But
get you.
I love the healing space. And so where can we follow you on social just so that we have our ears to the ground and know about that retreat or when your program's open?
Yeah, so the best way to follow me is to go to my website and take my sensual archetype quiz and get on my mailing list, because that's where I'm the most active. I do have an Instagram, and that is my name, Jessica_Alfaqih, and you can look at the text to know how to spell that. And yeah, I'll be announcing mostly through my email list, but probably on Instagram as well.
Okay,
Different things
beautiful.
come up.
We'll leave all those links below. And I know I would love to have you back on just to talk about intimacy and like sex while microdosing or even having a peak
Yes.
experience, because that's what came to mind as you were talking earlier. And I was like, ooh,
Yes.
I want to learn more about that.
And
I'd love
that is
to.
not talked about a lot. I have struggled to find stories about people having sex that are like,
Uh,
that feel like they're coming from a educational perspective, especially.
yeah, I mean, I see the reason it came to mind for me is because I feel like I often see it on like social. Well, I have another question. I feel like I'm asking you very like basic questions.
Cool.
I have a really basic girl question. Is weed considered a psychedelic? Because I group it into psychedelics, but I feel like it's probably not. Is it?
THC, I think, has psychoactive compounds, but it's not a psychedelic.
Okay.
The psychedelics are mostly the psilocybin family, the um, LSD. People, well, MDMA, and then people will group ketamine in there. I think ketamine is like its own special category. But the traditional psychedelics are the ones that give you. Actually, let me just say this, because the science aside, when we're talking about people being concerned about like the intensity of a psychedelic experience, I find weed to be harder to control a lot of the times than like a psychedelic trip. So there's like being drunk, which is really hard to control, weed,
Yes.
which is like can take me to some places where I'm like, I just want to get off this ride.
Girl,
And then psychedelics
never
where it's
again for
like,
me.
okay, edibles, I can't believe that was those are so strong. Those are so strong.
We have to talk about that in the next episode because my experience is so bad.
Can't wait to I heard your podcast episode where you tried to record while you were high.
Oh my God, it was so bad.
That's so funny.
I would never do it again. I mean, I shouldn't say I would never because sometimes I fel the pull, but maybe it's not
Mhm.
specifically for that. maybe maybe I'll try a little microdosing. We got to do something better. Okay, so what you're saying is, all right, but I feel like people they have sex a lot when they're high, or
Hmm.
I see that a lot on social, and so I'm
Yeah,
curious, if that's something that you know more about or like to speak on. I'd love to hear a little bit more. Well,
absolutely.
beautiful. So I would love to end actually the way that I am choosing to begin our live monthly gatherings, and it's with three questions. So number one is, what is something that you appreciate, whether right now in your life or in this moment, what's something that you're appreciating?
Well, this just hit me. I'm appreciating my ability to be flexible with my identity.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. I'm stepping into some new projects and getting to like choose to say that I can do this because I'm this new person. That's so powerful to me.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I like that a lot. I'm feeling that out for myself. I'm getting
You're like, try
distracted.
this on.
You have such great ideas. Okay, number two, what is a feeling that you're having right now in your body? A sensation that you're feeling?
I feel so energized and so excited. And energy is actually something that I struggle with. And so just like be feeling so nourished by this conversation has been really,
Oh my
I feel so
gosh.
gifted.
Well, thank you so much for being here. We're not done. You have another question, but I just want to say thank you. And I know you are like, oh, I'm nervous about speaking, but I've never seen someone speak so eloquently. You're so masterful at what you do, and you communicate it in a way that I feel like people who are new like myself can really understand and not feel as intimidated by such a big topic. So I
Oh,
want to commend you
great.
on
Great.
that.
Thank you.
Number three, what is a desire that you have?
Oh my gosh. Can I just go here right now? I'm about to start my period, and all I can think about is chocolate cake.
Ah, I was thinking of chocolate today. Yes. I wish we'd have
I'm
had
just saying
that
the
chocolate
first
cake.
thing I'm thinking. I will get it today.
Oh, chocolate cake, chocolate in
Oh,
general. I love that.
chocolate.
And
Oh,
I have an
yeah.
additional question. I'm going to add a fourth question for podcast guests. What is your current pleasure edge? What are you exploring right now?
I'm exploring giving myself space and time for my own pleasure. So I do a lot of work with other people's pleasure. I do a lot of learning about pleasure. And it's one of the things I help coach um, I want to say my coachees through, coach my clients through is like giving themselves more time and more permission for pleasure. And now I'm needing to do that for myself.
Beautiful. Oh, well, thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you for
Thank
sharing with us.
you.
Thank you for opening our worlds. I mean, I still have more questions, but we're gonna have to come back because you are just a beautiful well of wisdom, and I just love the way that you view the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's do a part two. Your podcast is such a gift. I love listening to it. I love the format of it and I
Uh,
love the content you put out there.
oh my goodness. So Jessica and I already have plans to come back and gift you another episode because I know, like me, you need more. And we already have a topic in mind. So she'll be back to discuss with us what it's like to have sex on psychedelics and how to bring that energy into our sex life and intimacy with our partners. So I'm really excited about that conversation. Now, if you would like to get your questions answered, comment them on the YouTube video for this podcast episode. If you're not subscribed to my channel on YouTube, what are you doing? Come on. This is where all the goodness is now. So if you have not heard, I'm really focusing on my YouTube channel. So head to @UniqueBelle on YouTube, search me up, look me up. I'm pretty easy to find, and subscribe. And you'll see that we are also recording video podcast episodes. So you can actually watch the video of the podcast episodes on the YouTube channel. I also have weekly videos coming out, so just all the goodness is there. So you want to go ahead and subscribe. But please comment below and let me know what you would like me to ask Jessica when she comes back on. And of course, definitely go and take Jessica's quiz on her website. I love a good quiz, and I actually just went ahead and took her sensual archetype quiz myself. And my results is I am a cosmic sorceress. Hello. Mystical, empathic, visionary, very me. So I love it. And I really love the imagery on this quiz. And it just like, it gives me like fantasy character vibes. Like, yes, I could totally see myself in this world. And so, yeah, she gives tips on where your personal blocks may be and how to move on to the next level, and like just gives you some really cool insight about yourself. And reading through mine, it's pretty spot on. So go ahead and take the quiz at Jessica Alfaqih. Alfaqih is spelled ALFAQIH.com. And yeah, share your results, comment your results, reach out to Jessica if you're interested in working with her and going deeper, and definitely follow her on social. I myself will be looking out for that retreat that she has planned. So all the details, as always, in the description box, in the show notes. So you can see all of that on the site and wherever you're listening. Thank you so much for coming on, Jessica, and popping my interview cherry. We actually popped each other's cherries because this was my very first interview and I really loved it. I honestly was nervous because I've never obviously done an interview before. I've had the intention, you guys have heard me talk about it, but finally just decided, let's go for it, let's do it. And it just came together so quickly and organically, and just, it was just a match made in pussy heaven. So I'm really excited about it and looking forward to doing more interviews just like this and bringing these conversations to you. Of course, our monthly podcast episode will come out in like another 2 weeks. So my like aim is to have a monthly episode out to you guys. That's like a monthly solo episode, just a unique original. Where we just talk about things and we dive into pussy consciousness and evolving and orgasmic mastery and all that good stuff, right? So you can expect that once a month, but between those episodes, I'd love to throw in these bonus interviews, or we'll see. I'll get creative. I gotta see what other segments I would like to add, but look out for these bonus editions to enter our flow as well. If you are like at the edge of your seat and you just can't wait for that monthly release, well, I have weekly videos on YouTube now. So hello, come subscribe. Or better yet, make sure you grab your Sensual Refresher Kit with 5 pussy tingling practices to reconnect to your sensuality and really come back home to you. So we've got a pussy massage practice in there. Ooh, sex magic is also in there. Did I hear that? Is that a bonus in there? What? And on Halloween, who wants to do a little pussy magic ritual? So that's perfect. Go ahead and grab that. You'll get onto the email list automatically by grabbing that freebie, which means you'll get notified of those weekly YouTube videos as well as my monthly podcast episode. That can be found at uniquebell.com/kit. Head on over to the site, take a new look at what's new. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot. Our monthly live is coming up. We have a monthly live gathering that's completely free to everyone in the community, everyone on the email list. So when you sign up for your Sensual Refresher Kit, you will also get your invitation to join us live every month, and we'll do a practice from the kit and a little, bonus stuff. I like to add a little pizzazz. You know me, can't do the same thing every day. So if you want some laser coaching, just community support, and just be able to practice and experience the work live, come and join us there. So all of this, you only have one action step, really. Get your Sensual Refresher Kit and you're set. Join us, and we'll see you either on the YouTube channel. Come and comment, let Jessica know what you want her to answer next, or we'll see you live at our next community gathering, which is coming up very, very quickly on November 7th. So heads up, eyes peeled, grab your goodies. I love you. I hope your interest is piqued in the psychedelic world. How absolutely cool was this? Oh, yes. So this was also Jessica's first interview as well. So please go and share some love for her. Let her know how, amazing it was for you to listen. Because honestly, being a coach and putting yourself out there, it can be terrifying. It can be scary. It's one of the things that have held me back, even, with you guys, like the fear of being seen, of being judged, all that good stuff. And so hearing back and just knowing that people appreciated you and appreciated your message is just chef's kiss. That's what we're here to do, support and lift each other up. So please go ahead and give her some love on the YouTube channel, wherever you're listening. Maybe leave a review of the podcast wherever you're tuning in from. Happy Halloween! I love you. I love you, I love you, I love you. Have a wonderful Halloween. Don't overdo it on the sugar. Don't become a candy fiend. I love you. See you next month or next week. See you when I see you.